Okay, very bittersweet day in CBJ land. Well, let's start with the sweet because that's what happened first. So Patrik Laine re-signs to a 4-year deal with an AAV of 8.7 million. I think this is a situation where both sides kind of got a little bit of what they want in this negotiation. The Jackets obviously getting some stability with Patrik Laine's contract and locking him up for a multi-year deal. There's not going to be any more speculation of, well, hey, he's only signed on for this season, so maybe they trade him at the deadline, or maybe they, trade his rights away in the offseason or anything like that, yada, yada. None of that anymore. He's locked up for, the next 4 years. I think the contract includes a 10-team no-trade list, which, is essentially nothing, so I guess if the relationship showers between them, then I guess maybe Laine gets traded. But I think if the relationship was bad between the two sides and this deal doesn't get done at all, probably. For Patrik Laine, he gets to hit free agency when he's still 28, so he'll still be theoretically in the prime of his career, still young, and the salary cap will be significantly higher than it was. So if Patrik Laine gets all the way to free agency and without an extension or anything, he is going to look very attractive on the free agent market in a scenario where teams have a lot more money to spend. So he kind of smartly said, hey, I'll still be young. The salary cap will be way up, and maybe I can get a little bit more money than I'm making currently, even with this extension, the 8.7 per year. There's still going to be an issue of who centers that line between Johnny Gaudreau and Patrik Laine. Although if Johnny Gaudreau is going to be a play-driving wing, kind of like Artemi Panarin was here for the Blue Jackets, the center is going to have to necessarily be like an offensive juggernaut or a guy who drives play. The center is probably going to have to be more of a guy who can win a lot of face-offs, so you're hoping a little bit more than 50%, somebody who's a little more defensively responsible, and somebody who's maybe not afraid to physically throw their body around a little bit. This kind of sounds like I'm advocating for Boone Jenner to be the 1C, and maybe subconsciously I am, because I know that myself included and a lot of CBJ fans don't necessarily embrace the idea of Boone Jenner being the top line center again, because it worked so well last year, but we've seen where it very much doesn't. So we're not really sure like what Boone Jenner kind of is as a centerman, if he actually does fit on the top pair, if that play that he had last year is sustainable. It teeters on being not sustainable towards it actually working again. But if he plays like he did last year this year, then Boone Jenner could very well definitely be a good fit at the top center there. Although I think it would be really interesting if Cole Sillinger got that job, and we can see kind of what the future of the Blue Jackets will look like for, the next few years immediately. And there was a salary cap issue. I actually recorded a whole video about, who might be traded and who probably won't be. Spoiler, I said that Bjorkstrand probably wouldn't be traded, but, here we are. And the cap space, again, was an issue. They're still technically over the cap, but once they get some players down to the minors, because I think they have 25 players counting against the cap. Once guys like Tarasov and Brendan Gaunce and maybe a guy like Danforth or something goes to the Cleveland, they'll be under the cap now that they have traded Oliver Bjorkstrand and his I think it was a $5 million cap hit to the Seattle Kraken for picks in the 2023 draft, a third rounder and a fourth rounder. Oh, I get it. Like, Oliver Bjorkstrand definitely gets the Jackets the best return here, although out of all their players, although this return is still pretty yucky. It's not who I would have liked to have been traded. I was definitely on the Nyquist and maybe Voracek train. I get why you don't trade Voracek, because you just brought him back. He's a fan favorite and all that, but like Gus Nyquist kind of made the most sense. This return for Oliver Bjorkstrand isn't great. And here's why I'm not going to go into full-on rant mode about, how much this trade really super sucks. I don't know what the sweetener to move Nyquist was, because I think it was going to have to be like a Max Pacioretty situation, where if you're trading him, it's going to be with another sweetener, and you're probably getting, the future considerations back, which means nothing. So I think if you were to trade Gus Nyquist, you probably would have had to throw in a 2023 round pick, or if you're going to get anything, it's like a late rounder, like 5 years from now or something. And I just read a quote from, an Aaron Portzline tweet where somebody said the same thing, like, hey, I wouldn't have moved Oliver Bjorkstrand. I would have just simply moved Gus Nyquist. And the quote tweet that Aaron Portzline said was, quote, if only it were that easy, unquote. So I feel like Jarmo and the front office definitely tried to feel out what a Nyquist trade would look like. And I guess they said, instead of, maybe biting the bullet on trading Gus Nyquist and what that would entail, they would rather bite the bullet on trading Oliver Bjorkstrand and getting something else back for him. But it definitely sours the tone of the extension. It's kind of like a soul for a soul kind of thing, kind of like, it definitely feels like a blood for blood kind of day, where you sign one of the best pure scorers in the league. When he's feeling it and he's on like a point streak and a goal scoring streak, there's almost nothing like it in the NHL. But you did so at the cost of trading one of your guys who, remember, Oliver Bjorkstrand, when they said like, oh, we want to sign players who want to be here during the height of like the no one wants to play in or for Columbus debacle, Oliver Bjorkstrand signed like his 4 or 5 year contract extension during like the height of that time. So Oliver Bjorkstrand was definitely a guy who was very loyal to the front office, very loyal to the team. And, when push came to shove, I guess they said, yeah, we could trade Gus Nyquist, but we'd have to bite the bullet. And Jarmo has to, do the best in trades that he can. And Oliver Bjorkstrand was unfortunately the guy on the chopping block that had to go away. So this doesn't ruin the day for me. I think still getting Patrik Laine is still a big win, but it definitely puts it just, like, you see that trade and you just want to vomit as a Blue Jackets fan. At least for me, you see that Oliver Bjorkstrand goes away for way, 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 way less than he's actually worth on the open market to a team in Seattle that, well, yes, they look like they have a pretty good future. Matty Beniers has looked pretty good in the NHL games that he played. They just drafted Shane Wright, who was a consensus #1 pick for years until this draft. So they have some good center prospects coming. There's some reasons to be hopeful for the Kraken, but the Kraken aren't going to do anything this year. It sucks that Oliver Bjorkstrand has to, maybe they do. Maybe the Kraken go on a surprise run, and if they do, Oliver Bjorkstrand is going to have to be a big part of that. So maybe this is a blessing in disguise for him and the Kraken, but, to kind of say, oh yeah, thanks Oliver Bjorkstrand for signing on when nobody else really would. You've been a really good soldier here. We are going to trade you out west to a team that was pretty awful last year and is probably going to be pretty awful again this year. Thank you very much. Goodbye. It seems kind of like a callous move by the front office. And like, are we done with the whole like, oh, if you want to be here, we're going to keep you, or like we want to play with guys who want to be here? Is that done now? We're done with that marketing BS. I hope so. Well, thank you for watching the video. If you liked it and you want to see more, please leave a like and subscribe. I will see you on the next one.